Hi, how you doing? This one today is about a quick recce through time of history and a resolution. Right, starting off at the time, well, in the Vedas, it's basically about 155 trillion years have passed, and we're in the second half of the Vedic universal time of 311 trillion 40 billion years. So we're in the second half of the 155 trillion years, in the 51st year of the 100 years, and we're in the basically the 28th part of the day, 28th day of the 7th part of the day, called Vavasvata. There's 14 Manus, and we're in the 7th Manu called Vavasvata Manu, which probably is Noah as well. The Bible is basically just a shorter, smaller, watered down version of the Vedas. In briefing, and this is all about where we're at, which is basically in the 51st year of the fourth yuga, in the 7th part of the day. There's 14 of these Manus, as I saying. So we're in the 4th yuga, which is Kali Yuga government, and it's only the government that keeps in the Kali Yuga. And why that is because in the Kali Yuga we have three dynasties of industries that I've condensed this down to seeing, which is basically the bankers were known as the Kavarians in the Vedas, the legal law, which is basically the Asuras in the Vedas, and the Rakshasas, known as the political party that protects the bankers, the Kavarians. Now these three dynasties were removed, we would be in a better off time to get us back into a flow state, a Krita Yuga. So you're in an ebb state. That's where we're all enslaved to money, as we know, wage slaved, working 48 weeks with a 4-week holiday. As I say in other videos, you need to get back into basically a time sharing duty system, a free administration, where it's like working for 7 weeks and 3 days between 7 people on every duty locally, or 13 weeks locally. So you get 7 weeks, 3 days between 7 people, or 13 weeks between 4 people. That will cover all the duties, giving everybody back 44 weeks and 4 days if you're doing 7 weeks and 3 days per annum, or you'll get in 39 weeks. So you choose what you want to do, either or. And you put them in all in human resources in every industry, keep relevant in a free world. The calculation becomes realistic when you actually get rid of all the banking systems and all the false duties that are only here at capitalism right now, because of money, obviously. So you remove them all them workers now basically are redirected into relevant duties of a free world, and no one's enslaved anymore and exploited. Everyone's in a free world, and you're getting basically 44 weeks, 10 months or 9 months back to yourself per annum of your 52 weeks, which is your first sovereign right. And so because we live on Earth, things have to be made and done and pushed around by each other and served, otherwise nothing gets done. It's not like we can have if by thought and magic you can ask a desire tree to basically give you what you want. The desire tree realistically is like hemp and other trees that produce many products. Like hemp has about 80,000 uses, which is not being used so much at the moment, which it should be. That's one of our desire trees, and practically making things happen from the thought of ideas or creation. Talking about trees, I mean, I'm going to go through the times as I was saying. I mean, there's about 400 trees per person in this world right now, according to Google, if we believe Google in its statistics. It's a bit of a hit and miss with Google. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, right? So let's say it is right. That makes it 3.4 trillion trees, as it says in Google. That's 400 trees. So this greenwashing at the moment about, we need to, it's all being made for governmental propaganda right now. There's enough trees in the world. So it's not about a case of no more replanting, which goes on every time you go on Ecosia anyway. So there's not enough trees going on. And some of these trees, as you see the mountains going back into antiquity of time, and you see them, they are actually tree stumps of other life. Some actually are mountains, probably, and some actually are tree stumps. So it's a bit of both everywhere. There's no difference about all these things, and that's the eternal sort of, that's the constant sort of discovery, exploration of a lot of people really into, which I salute. So it's very interesting to watch some of these guys' videos, but I will have out these things about certain things like antiquitech, basically for the last 5,000 years being free electricity and everything. As well, who says the energy was free? I mean, there's been a war going on for 5,000 years. We're in the age of Kali, so money's a big factor a big factor in time. So just because their backdrop of 5,000 years and buildings and everything may be more grandiose and better built, and the technology was more analog, does not mean that it was free. That's a presumption. I think that money's been going on since the Treta Yuga, which is the silver yuga of the four yugas, the second death of man, when silver yugas began. It takes about, by looking at things, 3 yugas for the virus of money to basically run its course. We're still 5,000 years into the Kali Yuga, which has about 427,000 years allotted to it. Other people argue how the yuga's actually running its timing, but if we just go with the 427,000 years left out of 432,000 years as a Kali Yuga, and 5,000 years have passed, we need to get out of the grip of the effects of Kali, at least. Whether the time count is still 427,000 years, it could actually be a Krita Yuga within a Kali Yuga, which was prophesied by God in his last incarnation as Lord Chaitanya 535 years ago, where his heralding or passing would bring a 10,000 years golden yuga within a Kali Yuga. So why are we still in the system where we're under Kali Yuga, right? So how do we get back into there? Well, we need to basically not vote. That'd be one of the things. And then become neutral, non-monetary, instantly with it, clear all debts, and then enable, as I said, his work smart timeshare templates, 44473 and 3913, and decriminalise all drugs, and have more rehabilitation stations. These 5 things that we all done, stuck together, every native in every country stuck to doing these things, we'd overcome our government, this governmental system, not our government, this government, them, and get rid of them and their banking systems. That were basically, as I said, they're the 3 dynasties of industries, like subterranean. We just want to remove them because they're getting in our way. And everything would actually work out for other relevant duties of a free world, of a Krita Yuga administration, yeah? So yeah, as I say, going back into other things about the antiquity of time is all like that. And what we need to do is basically realise that this system would change, and the technology, basically where we're going into right now, is of a digitech, which has gone off about 45 years or so. And what we need to do is basically keep it in the sweet spot where it is, but get still back into analog technology as well. This would sort of like remedy, because we're in the sweet spot right now where the digitech is okay for, but what happened is like some of these books have been showing us, and the stories like Transformers, what happens when you basically get too advanced with basically machinery and thinking machines, is you'll get things like Optimus Prime and things like that going on, and Decepticons and all that, and Ex Machina going on, and you get a very human lifelike robots, because these crazy nerds in their back rooms and labs will start creating crazy mental robots that are more human-like and have its own thoughts and everything else. And this is where the problem begins as well, you see. So we're in a sweet spot to stop it, just where it is right now. Does have mobile phones, have laptops, so it's great for our own personal independency of growth and creating. We're not basically getting caught up by middlemen anymore. There's middle management for money, where you can become your own self-creator and marketer and producer of a free world, or within this system of money within the 5 years that we're in, until the great day of revolution I go on about all the time. But where we're at right now, it's good in that sense of technology. But our problem is, to see, if we get too far advanced in there and we let these nerdy people rule our world, and they're going to start making more machines, becoming more lifelike and human, and thinking too much. They're making robots now that can climb stairs and backflip and all sorts. These are the next things that are continuing a war in order, that are going to basically be in the front line of war. And how more sophisticated they get, And you need with military to become more neutral, as I say, to stop the modernisation of technology becoming more and more basically abhorrent, which is then what's going to happen. I mean, there's a lot of sci-fi films that have basically prophesied the problem, of our times, of what we could be heading towards if we continue going down this road of digital technology and thinking machines. And we need to basically just curb it, like Terminate basically shows you the problem of thinking machines. All the Dune series the earlier books before June about the thinking machines, or basically the Battalion Jihad, were all about that by Frank Herbert, and the Battle of Corinne, and how it was basically outsourced and stopped, and basically it went to an analogue kind of way of thinking. So I think 5,000 years have been here, we haven't had thinking machines, and it's been more of an analogue way between so where people were stronger in their minds and their bodies and abilities of becoming human thinkers in themselves, and abilities over their mind, over matter, over their body. And now, it's basically said, the last 45 years, the digital technologies came in, like, we're back into having this slight inkling of the thinking machine starting to get to where it is, but we just got it at a sweet spot where we have, as I said. And as like the later books of Frank Herbert's sons written, basically by Frank Herbert's son, Anderson, and Frank Herbert's other son, and it's talking about the hunters of June and Sam was at June, and it's basically the Erasmus is brought back into the into the scene of a thinking machine, which is pretty much like in our Android is for our mobile phone. It basically data predicts everything and knows in our mobile phone what's going on. I mean, these sort of certain apps from these things can be removed because we're under a war of surveillance. These things are going to be held against us while we're in a warring world, because it's a war in a situation for surveillance between one country and another until we're ruling a warring government. See, as I said, if you remove the money, remove remove them by firstly it's not voting, we can basically start to review all these certain problems we have with the modern digital technology and keep it good. But that's going to start when really we stop voting into these systems for these things to change. There's too much money under their control and surveillance that they're not going to happen within the 5 years to the next general elections, or 4 or 5 years that we're in. It's going to start to change when you stop voting, and then you can start to sort of like bridge all the mistakes and that we're in, and try and make a brighter administration where it's more natural. Where you've got more of an analogue world, there's a bit of digital, but it's not too much. There's a little bit of just a need, not too much, you see. So yeah, that's it, I thought I'm going to get off my chest. But I was saying, it's just, I've been throwing a whole load of things, but just getting off my mind on my chest. I mean, this was going to go in my, one of my vlogs called The Testimony of a Witness in the Sun, because I sort of address some of these things in these ebooks that I've done, and the other stuff on SNF is more about, as I say, the 5-step plan more. But as you see, I'll mix it all up a bit. But talking about more esoteric stuff will be more of what this channel is for, if and when I do it. Every so often, I need to get things out off my chest and say things. And I hope if anyone takes anything good from this, great. And if you want to comment, do so. I'll make them positive. Alright, anyway, have a nice afternoon. See you now.